Yeah, thank you very much. So as you said, today I will talk about provably secure AI for health data. And I will also show what confidential computing means, because it's a technology. It sounds like a buzzword, but it is a technology, and I will show how it works. So all of us have seen this news about Google and that OpenAI chats, like private chats, were shared on Google because maybe we're a bit not careful enough with the settings, but this was really shocking to me to see that actually private conversations end up on Google. There was also the news that because of IP or copyright regulation, OpenAI was forced to store chats, private chats, even though you deleted them. And I think that's very interesting to see that we delete a chat and then it's still there. It has to be stored for copyright reasons. And then, for instance, if you look at other services like Anthropic, they were now saying that data will be stored for up to 5 years. So this is really a long time. And if we think about health data, I don't really want this to happen. And then if we don't offer, and we've seen this before, if we don't offer central AI services, people will start using ChatGPT anyways. So that's the topic of shadow AI that I think a lot of talks have already covered. So we need central AI services. What is interesting for me to see is that there are a lot of services now claiming we have sovereign, private, secure AI, but then if you look under the hood, it's often ChatGPT hosted on Azure in Europe, and it's very safe and private, and just trust us. So the big question is, how can we use AI with sensitive data in a very secure way, and very importantly, at scale? And at scale, when I say at scale, it means without on-prem. Because if you are a pharmaceutical company, your business is not data centers, your business is not buying expensive GPUs, hosting them on-prem, deploying models, paying for the electricity bill. Your business is something else and you just want to use the AI. So how can we do that securely and at scale without on-prem? We are Edgeless Systems. We are the leading company for open source software for confidential computing. We work with big companies like IBM for electronic health records in Germany. We are the confidential computing partner of Stacked Cloud. We are working with Airbus in the domain of the multi-domain combat cloud. How can we have different data centers, use them in a very secure way? We are working very closely with companies like Capgemini and NVIDIA. And the Swiss Stock Exchange is also one of our investors. There are many other cases, like you see the University Clinic Freiburg. Now, what is confidential computing? All of you know that we can keep data encrypted when we store it, and we can keep data encrypted when we send it to someone else via TLS. But the big game changer with confidential computing is that it makes sure that your data is also encrypted while it's in use. So when your data is being used somewhere on like someone else's infrastructure, your data stays encrypted in use. And that means there's a very small text below. CPU keeps data encrypted in memory. So you know what memory is, or RAM. Your data will stay encrypted in that memory from the CPU. And you can't do something like a memory dump, like get data out of memory. And then, very importantly, because maybe now we could say the cloud tells you everything is always encrypted and secure, but there's a very important second feature that is called remote attestation. And what that means is that the CPU would issue a crypto certificate showing the integrity, the authenticity of that trusted execution environment. So similar to web certificates in your browser, if you go to deutschebank.de, you can see HTTPS and you can see a certificate that it's a secure website. And in a similar way, you can get a certificate directly from the chip that your data is processed in a secure way where no other process from the infrastructure has access to your data. So these are the very important mechanisms. And Edgeless Systems, we are a German company based in Bochum. Our founder used to work at Microsoft Research as one of the first people on confidential computing research. I did a PhD before that in Bochum, and that's where our headquarters is. And we focus on building infrastructure software to make these CPU features easily accessible. Because it's not enough if you have the right CPU in the cloud somewhere, but you need to enable that. And you know, things like maybe Kubernetes, very technical terms, but if you want to scale an application in the cloud, how do you do that? How do you make use of these features? So that's what we focus on, and everything that we build is open source. Now, in the electronic health record that was mentioned in earlier talks also, there's something called trusted execution environments in the specification. In German, it's called vertrauenswürdige Ausführungsumgebung, die V. And now the Gematik has published also a specification that is more explicit and is called healthcare confidential computing. And the objective that Gematik has put is that the backend infrastructure provider is not able to access patients' information. So if IBM is providing a backend system for Krankenkasse and AOK and Barmer, then the employees of IBM should not be able or allowed to see your patient information. And this is where software from us comes into play to make this easy at scale and verifiable. This is the case that we've built with IBM Consulting in Germany, the eHealth team, and it's the EPA system running for 50 million patients already throughout Germany. Now, this is protecting healthcare data, but the important question here is how can we bring AI to this healthcare data? Because now, in an earlier talk, someone was saying, now we have all this information, but how can we connect this maybe to AI? Because if I recently had an MRI for my leg, and the first thing you do, because it's a lot of very technical terms, putting some of the information to ChatGPT so that you get like an easy way to understand your healthcare information. So this is very tricky, but there is something new. Confidential computing also exists for GPUs. So NVIDIA also supports confidential computing, and we are very closely working with NVIDIA to make this easily accessible. Last year, NVIDIA has published an article, Advancing Security for LLMs, with NVIDIA GPUs and Edgeless systems. And in that article, they say that we have introduced the first Gen AI framework that keeps prompts encrypted at all times. So you send a prompt, your data will be locally encrypted, it's encrypted over the network, it's encrypted also while it's being used in the backend. And I will share some more details on that. That solution that we have published is called Privatemode AI. And through Privatemode, we serve powerful AI models as a service. We do that through a standard API, so you can easily integrate this into your process. You don't need local GPUs. And it provides verifiable operator exclusion. Because as I mentioned, our software is open source. You can verify everything that we are doing, and you can use directly this remote attestation feature from the CPUs and the GPUs in that central backend. So as I was saying, we support the latest and greatest of the open source tools. So there's or models. There's the GPT-OSS, 120 billion parameters from OpenAI. There's Gemma, for instance. There's a Coda model. We support Whisper also for speech to text. And and you see here, OpenAI compatible API that is kind of the de facto standard today. So it provides standard endpoints that you can easily integrate also for agentic AI systems. So Privatemode, the focus of Privatemode is the secure backend. So I was talking a lot about the cloud and these CPU features. So this is the basic feature, that we have confidential computing in the backend, making sure that the infrastructure provider cannot access your data. So we have a secure, fully confidential backend. Now, when I say end-to-end encryption, there's one important component that is running locally. So we have something called the Privatemode proxy. That is a component that runs locally and that verifies the integrity of that backend, and it also encrypts your user prompt locally. So if you send a prompt, a request with your healthcare data, then it will be encrypted locally, and then it will be sent over the network encrypted, and in that trusted execution environment, it will be processed in a way that nobody can access your data. So with Privatemode, we have end-to-end confidentiality. We can verify this thing end-to-end based on these CPU and GPU features. We have no access by us as the service provider, and we have no access by the cloud or model provider. Now, of course, it's very, very technical, and not every individual will verify that by themselves. We are working with the German government, and EY has conducted a very detailed 4-month architecture review where they didn't find any vulnerabilities or like architectural problems that would leak any data. TÜV IT has done a 10-person day pen testing with full admin access, and they didn't get any clear text data out. So we've also verified this through external parties. So the initial question was, how do we bring AI to health data? And there's a huge typo on that slide that I mentioned a bit or noticed a bit earlier. Explain EPA by IBM powered by Privatemode. And what they did is they used Privatemode to show that what I was mentioning earlier with your healthcare record, if you want to have that in easy language, or maybe you come from a foreign country to Germany, you don't speak German, how do you translate this with a click of the button? And this is something that IBM has already shown based on our technology, that you can do this with end-to-end encryption, securing the health data also in that backend. With Capgemini, we are partnering to bring AI to regulated industries. One of the most fascinating use cases that we are working on there is confidential coding assistance. Because if Capgemini builds code for, let's say, a security agency in Germany, they say you can't use GitHub Copilot because we don't want you to send this code that you're developing to OpenAI, to Microsoft, to Google. So what we're now enabling for them is also that they can use coding assistance through Privatemode without leaking or exposing any intellectual property to any other party. Now, if we look at the feature roadmap, first thing for us was we want to support different models, including coding assistance, which was very important. We have an endpoint for tool calling, because if you think about agentic systems, this is super important because I think the more financial data you're sharing, the more healthcare data you're sharing, and there's agents working with that, it gets more and more important. We have confidential prompt caching because, of course, we have a very small encryption overhead of like a 1-digit percent area, like 5% approximately. But it's very important to do caching, and also do caching in a way that your data still stays confidential. We have also a bigger and bigger like context window, so there's more and more data that you can send with your prompt, like larger PDF files, for instance. For that, we also support a native file upload. And what is now on the very short-term roadmap is that we can deploy large models, like 500 billion parameter models across GPUs. That's coming with the B200, the new NVIDIA generation Blackwell. And we will support at some point also a confidential RAG, because at the moment our customers are using or deploying parts of this on-prem, including the RAG, which is like you have a vector database of all your knowledge, and how can you access that, and this runs locally with a client, and then our system is used for, as it's called, inference, so that you can make requests to AI models, and this is what we focus on at the moment, but RAG is something that we're looking into as well. Yeah, so if you have more questions, you can contact me through LinkedIn or via email. And what is great is that we also have a bit of room for questions. I try to make this as short and concise as possible, so that, you can also ask me something. Also, last thing here is you can also start for free. So we have 1 million token per month for free. So you can also just try out the API with different models and get started.